right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Independent Mindset, the podcast for candid conversations, staying curious, and being better. So, Jason, what's up, dude?
Coffee is life right now.
Yeah. I never thought I'd say that too. I'm a coffee drinker now.
Yeah, when did you start? Like 6 months ago, I think you'd even have a coffee yet.
Yeah, I blame my wife. She loves the coffee, and she now makes it, she drinks it basically just with a tad of cream. But I have it with a bit of sugar, so she makes it nice. So it's digestible for me,
How does she make it? Is it like instant coffee or French press, or there's just so many coffee ways now?
I know, it's crazy.
Why is there so much coffee variety?
It's an insane market too. Like the markup on coffee is insane. No, she grinds it up just in a little coffee grinder, and then she puts it in I don't know the coffee terminology, but she puts it in a filter, a drip filter. That's what it is. And then just pours the boiling water on it directly into the cup.
I have a French press here, and I use that from time to time. My parents turned me on to instant coffee that just looks like brown popcorn flakes, and then you pour hot water over it. Surprisingly good. I know that's coffee sacrilege, but
yeah, I feel like coffee snobs will be like bansheeing right now.
Yeah, but whatever. I can shoot a gun better than you. And then cool. I've done the sock thing before, like the big filter. And then there's one too that it looks like a really mini kettle that you put it on the stove. It has the water underneath, and then like the steam goes into the ground, and then it leaks out one end.
So my wife does. She has it's one of those like little compressed, almost like steamers you put on the stove, and she does that only for lattes though. So once in a while she'll spoil us and she'll make lattes. She'll like get what does she do? She steams up milk. I think it's milk she puts in it. She steams it up, and then she'll what do you call it? Make it, a latte, like frappe the milk.
Yeah, you have to make it like frothy, eh?
Yeah, frost the milk. There you go.
Oh, there you go.
It's still early for me. Sorry, buddy.
I'm going for coffee number 2 here in a minute. You might have to hold down the fort on your own.
All right. Hey, you're the one running this topic today.
True. But man, I don't know if it's just me, but I can't taste the difference. Like, unless it's something like a latte or whatever that has like half milk, then okay, obviously you're going to taste the difference. But if it's a French press or a filter or whatever, name your way of doing it, it's all the same to me.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you, man. I don't know. I don't know coffee. Like people say they love or they hate Tim Hortons, and then they, like my parents hate Tim Hortons, but they'll actually swear by McDonald's and say it's surprisingly good coffee.
A lot of people say that.
They're both gross to me.
A lot of people say that McDonald's coffee is better than Tim's coffee.
Yeah, I've often heard that Tim's is like, I don't know, has a specific, distinct, like too syrupy of a coffee kind of thing. But
I mean, it's kind of bitter, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah. Hey, did you know? Yeah, you probably knew this, but yeah, Tim Hortons customership has been dropping for like the past 3 years now.
Yeah, their revenue has been down. QSR is the ticker symbol. Restaurant Brands International is the company that owns Tim Hortons. It's a Brazilian company, so technically Tim's is Brazilian now. And
Burger King and Popeyes.
Wendy's. I want to say Taco Bell too, possibly.
Okay.
Anyways, a couple of them. Burger King for sure.
Yeah.
And revenue has been going down. I was looking at the PE ratio too, the price to earnings, and they're not doing that great. Like I know they're trying to turn it around and doing this, that, and the other thing, but it's not one of my picks right now.
Yeah. I don't know what's happening in Canada. It's still, Tim Hortons is a staple. And a few years ago, when this company did buy Tim Hortons, they decided to add some to the States. At least I know they were like testing them out more in the northern states, and they must not be doing that well if for the last couple of years the customership has been diminishing consistently in the Tim Hortons.
I heard that the quality went down, the service. Well, it's fast food essentially, right? So the service is never that great.
Let's be honest. Like, I go to Tim Hortons again as a non-coffee drinker or as a non-coffee coffee drinker. I'll have a French vanilla once in a while, which is basically powdered sugar in hot water, and they do it at Tim Hortons. That's the only thing that find worthwhile at Tim Hortons. I find the food is pretty mediocre.
Okay,
Like a
well,
breakfast sandwich is way better at McDonald's than Tim Hortons.
one thing they do well though is the chili. Tim Hortons has pretty decent chili.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so
I've heard that before, actually.
I just got like the basic numbers here of QSR. Their annual dividend is higher than their earnings per share. So they pay out $2.61 of divvies per share per year, and their annual earning per share trailing 12 months is $2.06. So interpret that the way you want.
Yeah. Yeah, it won't be one of my picks. I find food tricky anyways, especially the last year and a half. It's like, well, if the government says you can't make a living, then you can't make a living. So,
And if Duncan's listening to this one and I totally botched that analysis, buddy, well, then teach me some more.
I mean, you didn't say anything. You just basically read out two numbers.
So, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, you seem pretty excited to get our this is going to be a series which is going to be about archetypes, specifically about male archetypes, and we're gonna, I guess, base ourselves more on the Jungian model. But we'll get to that in 1 second. I know you're gonna lead the way here. I'm going to learn and follow. But before that, Jason, let's do our recurring segment, which we actually have not been recurring in a while.
Semi-recurring segment.
Yeah, canceled.
Finish him.
Dun, dun, dun,
So, Jason, what will be canceled next?
I'm going to tie it to today's theme, and I'm going to say summer camps for boys. This could be a breeding ground of toxicity.
Okay. Is that actually a thing still?
It's not? Is it? How's it not?
I don't know. Is there boys only camps?
There's got to be.
I
know they got rid of the Boy Scouts there recently and made it like the Scouts, but still kept the Girl Scouts. But
it was Scouts when we were kids.
Yeah, but there's still like camps for boys.
It was funny, how when we were kids, it wasn't fair. It was sexist, so the girls could join the Scouts, but it wasn't the same way around with the Sparks and Brownies and Girl Guides. Funny how that works.
But yeah, anyways, that's my thing. I'm pretty sure there's if it's not canceled already, boy camps, summer camps for boys.
Okay. Mine is I'm going to go with an expression that will either be canceled or severely altered, and that is money doesn't grow on trees. Because let's be honest, it pretty much does now.
Yeah, I thought you were going to take it like the ecological side, whereas don't cut down trees to make money.
No. Let's be honest. We don't have cash isn't a thing anymore, and it soon truly will not be. And it's made of plastic now, anyways. At least in Canada and many other countries. And the States is actually behind in their currency technology, I guess. But yeah, no, it's pretty much grown on trees in the sense that we can just have the Federal Reserve and any government just announce that they're going to be adding more money into our economy. So
our money supply. I'm still waiting for the velocity of money to really pick up once everything really opens up properly. And you think we have inflation now? Just wait for the mental gymnastics of the mainstream media and politicians. Like, no, there's no inflation. It's like, then why is a jug of milk $12? That's going to happen so bad.
Yeah, I mean, wood has inflated over 4 times what it was last year. And last year had already inflated like 3 to 4 times what it was the year before.
Yeah.
So we shall see. Fun future ahead. Yeah. So let's lighten things up here, Jason. What are we going to talk about?
Oh yeah, real light. All right, I'm going to do my best discount Jordan Peterson. Emphasis on the discount. And we're going to talk about masculinity. We're going to talk about male archetypes. And the reason we're doing that is, like, on va pas se le cacher, masculinity has been under attack for the last, what would you say, probably a slow erosion the last 30 years and a really quick, aggressive erosion the last 5 to 10.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And there's no more male archetypes in media. Anything remotely masculine is toxic, or you name it. You're basically not allowed to be a man anymore unless you're serving someone else.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, there has been archetypes, they just haven't been positive ones.
True.
And the positive archetypes have been deemed negative, which is really funny how that happens because
Right.
it's
And
just
that's
against all facts. But anyways.
and that's one thing we're going to cover. Sure, there's positive, there's negatives, there's good energies, there's bad energies, and there's ways to harness the positive for the greater good. So yeah, I know you could take the good old fashioned wisdom of just go be a man, but that's not really useful, right? It doesn't give you anything to work with. So
Plus for the upcoming generation, what does that mean, right?
right.
It means something very different if you are even allowed to say that sentence.
So this one here, really not taking it too seriously, is just more compartmentalizing aspects of what could constitute the psychological makeup of a mature man. We'll get into like the what it's based off of, and it's just to give you kind of digestible ideas of, oh yeah, there's maybe this component that I haven't seen. I recognize this in myself, I recognize that in myself, I should do more of this, I should do less of that. And it's just kind of giving you almost waypoints to go as you progress through your life to adopt a more mature persona and more mature habits of a mature man.
Right. And we're also going to cover, however, like boyhood archetypes as well before you get into being considered a man.
Yeah, exactly. So archetypes. Will, do you want to do the background on it, kind of where it came from?
Sure. And before that, just Jason wants to make this in, like you said, digestible nuggets. So we're actually going to try and do a kind of a 4 short parter. So, or a short 4-parter. There you go. Sorry, guys.
Still early.
Still early. I got up at 4. I had a horrible sleep. When they say, I slept like a baby. Well, I slept like the screaming baby who's up all night. So it's gonna be a 4-parter, and we're gonna divide it in the kind of the 4 major axes of the archetypes. And I'll let you run with it, but you basically base yourself to structure the content here is on the Jungian model. So that's based off of Carl Jung, who's actually Jordan Peterson mentions him a lot. And I mean, anybody who's studied psychology has to know Jung to an extent. He worked quite closely with Freud, I believe. I'm no expert, but just a quick background. So he's a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, and I believe it was when was it? It was the first half of the 20th century, I believe, that he did a lot of his work.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like from the 30s to the 50s.
And a lot, like he's a lot on the collective unconscious, evolution, survival, like really all the deep rooted psychological stuff, all the stuff we're pretending doesn't exist anymore when we espouse blank slate equalism. Like
right.
He's all that like kind of carried genetic legacy, that evolved legacy that we would have learned like through the centuries and the generations and everything.
And that's why it's fair also to consider him. By the end of his career, he was considered, and his legacy was considered to be a philosophy career as well. So he wasn't just a psychologist at that point, because he goes into the, almost like he really delved into like the religious realm. He really delved into, when he talks about archetypes, it's a lot about the, philosophy, religion, history. A lot of that he ties into the psychology and the psyche of human beings.
Yeah, it's very holistic, kind of looking at the human for what it is in its whole. But this year, when it comes to the archetypes, we'll get them out of the way. You got 4 major archetypes for the man, and then you have 4 archetypes for the boy. And the boyhood archetypes always precede the man archetypes. And after going through a certain rite of passage, either just maturation or hardship or whatever it may be, the boy can evolve into the man. And it doesn't mean
basically Charmander to Charmeleon.
That's exactly where I was going. It's basically, Misty's in the way, Charmander's weak to water. Well, I'm going to go level up till I learn Slash and maybe not get pwned by Bubble Beam. But anyway,
everybody listening is like, "Where's the loser archetype for these fuckers?"
And I am 30 years old, and especially in wintertime, like that's usually when I get my big gaming binge. Days are short, it's cold, and everything. Last year was Skyrim. Year before that was Pokemon, and I'm starting to feel like in the back of my head it's been a while since I played Pokemon. So I bet you next winter is going to be
a Game Boy version.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
It's got to be one of the best RPGs for Game Boy
Dude,
ever.
it's still good. It's excellent.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So, anyways, based on Jungian psych,
What's your sorry. I'm gonna go full loser. What's your favorite
Alakazam.
Pokemon? Oh, yeah, I think I remember that. Why are you into the psychics?
I don't know. I just like Alakazam. Always had just a real cool Pokemon.
Hmm.
How about you?
Yeah, I mean he was one of the more frightening ones when Ash and company had to face him. Um, I mean I always had a soft spot for Charmander, and the two other evolves. Like it's just a cool segment there. I also always had a soft spot. I guess it's just a cute Pokemon. It's like I liked Sandshrew. I thought he was cool. And then I also like Arcanine and what's his evolve?
Growlithe and Arcanine.
Growlithe and Arcanine because they're sweet badass dogs. I also thought the Eevee because she could evolve into like three like it was you had to choose and then they're evolved for life. I thought that was like a cool more permanent decision you had to make. It was like a cool dilemma within Pokemon's.
So you kind of like the four-legged animals, like lizards, shrews, dogs, that sort of thing.
I was that kid.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think I like the humanoid ones a little bit more, like Alakazam, Poliwrath, Machamp. Like I don't know.
Machamp. Yeah, Machamp.
Okay, so we're yeah. Okay, so the
You're welcome, Jason.
completely
I'm just I'm the Joker archetype right now.
just
Just-
tossing rocks at me. So this year, the whole archetype thing was written by Robert Moore and Doug Gillette in 1990, and they were like proper doctorates in psychology, based off Jungian philosophy and Jungian school of thought, and they based this archetype work off of Jung, and they really developed it. And that was just it's something that's interesting. It's fun to look at. Take it with a grain of salt, but it's I find it an interesting thought experiment and kind of like map to understand what can make a mature man. So what I was saying earlier is that you got your boyhood archetypes that can become your man archetypes, and it's not just linear. You have your positives and your negatives to each. You have the boyhood archetype in his fullness, which is like the purest good expression of the boyhood archetype. Then you have an active negative and a passive negative. So usually the active negative has all the energy of the fullness archetype, but doesn't harness it properly, and usually it's a detriment to those around him. Or the passive one who doesn't have the zest and the energy of the archetype in its fullness, and is usually more reserved and anxious and resentful of those around. So it's same thing for the boy as it is the manhood archetypes, where you have, let's say, one of the examples, one we'll talk about today, the king. You have the king in his fullness who brings forth all the best aspects of that archetype. But there's also the two shadow archetypes. If you want to get it all, actually, that sounds like Pokemon too, right? Like a little bit. I know there's not a shadow type, but there might as well be. It's got like Link versus Dark. That's what it is. You ever play Ocarina of Time?
yeah, yeah.
You,
You had the game.
in the water temple, when like the mini boss is Link versus Dark Link or Shadow Link, it's
Yeah,
basically just like a mere reflection of yourself, but all like gray and black.
right.
Well, it's basically that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I actually wouldn't discount that there's probably a shadow type Pokemon now.
There's a dark type.
Remember, oh yeah. Well, remember we were in the prime of Pokemon, which was the 150 Pokemon, but now there's like what 800 Pokemon or something.
Something like that. I played
There's like four generations of them or something.
dude. There's 8.
Eight? What? Okay, I'm old.
Like 4
Jeez.
generation was like when we were like 15 or 16 or something like that.
Okay, never mind.
All right. Anyway, so let's get into the archetypes. And today we're going to talk about one of the 4. We're going to talk about the boyhood and his 2 shadows, and then the adult in his fullness and his 2 shadows. And we'll try to make it a little bit more relatable too, so it doesn't sound like a cool magistral. So
And just before we get started on the one today, you said we're doing the king. Do you want to just list off the 4 major archetypes that we'll cover throughout the series?
yeah, absolutely. So the 4 great adult archetypes are the king, the warrior, the lover, and the magician. And these four represent aspects of a man's character, and that if all properly developed and nourished, represent a man acting in his fullness. And what that means, it's a man who is in control, benevolent, empathetic, strong, is responsible, wants to see others grow and develop, is takes care of his immediate environment, doesn't let other people down, is always learning. Like all the good aspects of a man can be encompassed within these four archetypes. And then each has their own a childhood archetype that's a precursor to the man's archetype. So for the king, you have the divine child. For the magician, you have the precocious child. For the lover, you have the Oedipal child. And for the warrior, you have the hero. And now that's just labels. Does it? It's if it doesn't mean anything to you, that's normal.
I love
But
how it's called the Oedipal child.
yeah, I know it's kind of cringy, eh? But
Yeah, it's such a messed up Greek story. So
yeah, so we'll leave the Freud out of that one. But
well, we'll get to that one on the third part on the
but
lover part.
but today we're going to talk about the king. And
Yeah, I think it's a good basis. It's a good starting point, as I think everybody can, even if they can't see themselves as the king, I think they can easily visualize what a noble king looks like, what that
and
archetype is.
like when I say that, Will, like a man who embodies the king, what imagery does that spark in your mind?
Um, in terms of like examples, or just or what are the traits of a king?
What are the traits of a king? Like you just think the king, like do you automatically think the guy on his throne, like kind of ruling over his realm, or do you think a guy
I mean, it
who's
could be
a leader in society? Like
right.
what do you see when you think the king?
Yeah, I think when you think king archetype, I think discipline, respect. So he garners a lot of respect. He's probably very consistent in what he does in life and how he rules or leads. Absolutely a natural leader, very good at it. I would say strong as well to an extent. So again, without getting fully into the warrior archetype, I think a king still has a very strong warrior part to him. He can back up his authority and his claims with action or knowledge to a certain extent. So again, kind of a mix of the magician and the hero and the warrior. Cares for others, but probably still a very strict and disciplined man. So can be scary and authoritarian when need be. That's how I would kind of describe the king, in
Yeah,
my
no,
opinion.
I would co-sign that exactly. So what makes a king? Well, a king isn't necessarily born a king. All these things have to be learned. Sure, the title of king in royalty is given, but what makes the archetype and the development of a king? Well, he has to learn the boyhood first. So, what's the boyhood version of the king? It's the divine child. So,
The
and
chosen one.
the chosen one, the Anakin Skywalker. Actually, man, we should put Anakin in one of the examples. He would definitely be one of the negative archetypes.
Yeah, he'd be a good high chair tyrant, I think,
Ooh, probably.
or part of him.
So, what is the divine child? And I'm going to try not make this too magistral, and cut me off if it sounds too academic or if there's an example you want to put in. Just go right ahead.
Sounds good.
So, the divine child is that it's that kid who loves being with others, has that honest zest for life, who inspires just by being, has the wanderlust for everything, wants to play with others, wants to make friends, wants everyone to just be happy. He's completely necessitous. He needs the adults. He needs help. He can't thrive on his own yet, but he inspires not only his peers but also inspires adults just with his innocence and his joy for life. And you can see like
Yeah,
the seeds being sown for a proper leader by taking action, not being reserved, not being shy, not being scared of trying new things. Like he's always, everything is a new adventure to him.
I think we can. I totally forget the psychologist's name. He's a child psychologist, and his theory for the longest time was that every child, every human being is born benevolent, right? They're born pure with goodness, nonviolence, and it's society or training into them being bad that actually makes them negative or violent. To which this was disproven. And actually, I listened to an interview, a podcast with Jordan Peterson. He had on another psychologist who his research he dedicated to figuring that out. So he studied, children from mainly like 1 to 3, like the toddler age, and realized that you're actually at your most, especially boys, you're at your most violent on average at around 2.
Yeah.
It's just you can't cause the damage you could cause if you're 22, right? So he kind of disproved that theory, but I would just say the divine child is that kind of life or history long theory, at least in our upbringing and probably even before, where it's kind of like all babies born are good babies, right? They all toddlers and children want to play with others and just be happy, go lucky, fun children, and learn things, which is not. I would also agree with the more recent research on that. Not necessarily true. They have to be steered in the right path. But that's how I would describe the divine child.
Yeah, well, you got nature, nurture, right? You got a little bit that's innate and a little bit that's your environment. So one example I thought of for this one, and it's really hard. It's either really easy to fit someone into a box in one of these categories, or really hard because they'll dip their toe in a few different pools. Lisa Simpson was the one that came to mind for me. She will inspire others. She just wants to learn, wants to be with others, brings other people up, but still necessitous. To me,
she has almost no negative traits.
She can be a little egotistical, but I mean, that doesn't mean you don't have faults, right? You're not a saint.
She's still a child too.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, good example for sure.
So as a man, there's a few things you can do, because even when you mature into the king, there's still going to be elements of the divine child there. And you never want to lose touch with your boyhood archetypes as a man, but you just don't want to let them overrule and override the maturity of the later developments. So a couple things that a mature man would do with a divine child is stay young at heart. Still enjoy the little things. Like Will, has this ever happened to you? That we're talking about Pokemon a minute ago. Like you pick up something from your childhood and like, you just light up and you're just like, I love this. Like there's always gonna be a little part of me who just wants to like make Charizard evolve into Charmeleon.
Well, you mean Charmeleon evolved into Charizard? Wow, you're embarrassing.
Oh, did I say Charizard to Charmeleon? Oh, I fucked up.
You need some sort of special stone there, like they used on Raichu for Pikachu.
Dude, Charizard is a level up, not a stone evolution.
No, I know, but you need something like that, maybe that exists, or they add into the myth of Pokemon. No, I was totally thinking. A second ago we talked about Pokemon in this, adult lecture, but also, we went to school in different places, and when we got, university, and every Christmas you and I would hang out, right, and catch up. And what would we do? We'd go. Crack open a beer, listen to like some Springsteen or some rock and roll in the background, and build some Lego, right?
Why not?
So you need some moments of that.
Exactly. And now are we going to spend our entire adult lives playing Lego? No, of course not. But once per year, I get to see my best friend, who get to hang out and play Lego. You're damn right I'm going to enjoy that.
Exactly. And we did. And that's also where we catch up and still talk about adult things, right? Another thing I'd say too, big reason to stay young at heart to an extent, is that when you have kids, right, you can't be 100%. I have no time to ever be young at heart or entertain the curiosities or even the silliness and the naivety of a child. You have to. That's how that divine child grows into hopefully a great positive archetype. Staying young at heart to an extent is very important.
That, and always having a vision for the future, enthusiasm for your projects, creative. You're kind of not restricted by the weight of adulthood at this point yet. Like your mind is still open to all the possibilities. And
look at entrepreneurs.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. They have this hunger, but also almost naive, right? To the point where they're just like, no, I'm going to succeed. Like I have an idea and this is going to work, which is what children do. And most of the time fail, right? Like, I'm going to build this amazing thing out of Lego. And you're like, God, this looks like shit. How did I ever envision that I could build this?
Your business only needs to succeed once, right? If you got 10 failures behind you and then the 11th is a success, you're a success.
Exactly.
So, yeah, anything you want to add to the divine child, the positive aspect of the childhood king before we look at the shadows?
Well, let's go with one of my favorite parts, or just favorite topics, is pop culture references. You mentioned Lisa, so just to make it a bit more accessible to folks, uh, do you have any other examples, or can you any other characters, historical or from movies or literature, that come to mind?
This one seems almost like too easy. It's so relatable that it's not relatable. Would be Jesus Christ. It's
Mm,
he
never heard of them.
never. Yeah, I think there's a biography of him somewhere or something like
Oh,
that.
okay.
I don't know, maybe a movie. Ask Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
But anyways, so with him is that he is so pure that he's obviously completely necessitous as a young man. Even as an adult, like he's still like he's the savior, sure, but he's still vulnerable, like to confrontation, vulnerable to attack, and still, as much as he inspires, he still requires help from his entourage. And that's one of the big things of the divine child is wherever he goes, he'll inspire others to be more, to be better, but without having that big hard presence of the king.
Right. And I'd say he, even as a child, you would leave that place having had a positive, somewhat of a positive impact, even if that's just you were this positive child that radiated good energy. But as we all know, Jesus impacted everybody positively wherever he went, right?
Exactly. And you can
Turning,
see you can see
water
how
into
that
wine. That's awesome.
that's pretty cool. You can see how that does become, a foundation of a good king is a wherever you go, you leave the place better than how it was when you arrived.
Yeah. I have a few other examples. One is Simba, so from The Lion King. I think The Lion King is just it's based off of Hamlet, of course, but it has all of the great archetypes. So I think we'll be talking about Lion King throughout this series. But Simba is kind of the perfect example. He's this young lion who is going to be he's the heir to the throne, so he's technically he's the king is locked in for him. It's just a matter of does he make the right decisions to be the good king, the benevolent king. And with Mufasa as his dad, it's looking that way, but then of course some bad things happen. He's very curious, right? He likes to explore, and sometimes to his detriment. However, I'd still say those are great traits to have as a child. Is that curiosity, exploration, thirst for life, thirst for power in a good way, right? Like I want to have more responsibility and be that great leader when I'm my dad's age, things like that. And the other one is, I think you and I both agree here. Harry Potter is probably almost too well kind of painted into the divine child that he's almost a Mary Sue.
He's kind of like Ray, where it's too easy for him. He just they're short. Well, Ray's worse than Harry Potter because she just
Oh
shows
yeah,
up
Rey
and
from Star
wins.
Wars.
Yeah,
Yeah, she defeats a Sith Lord or like a semi Sith Lord. I'm like, get out of here.
yeah, no,
Who
but
mastered the Force, but she just does all of a sudden in the middle of a lightsaber fight.
yeah, knows how to fly the Millennium Falcon better than Han Solo. It's like get out of here.
Yeah, yeah,
But anyways, yeah, Harry Potter would definitely embodies it. Just he's a little overdone. He's a little too good.
yeah. I agree. But he has, yeah. Again, he has probably like too much of the divine child in him, right? He was saved at close to birth because by the most powerful wizard attack ever because he's that divine child who has the powers, the magical powers of his parents. That's apparently like exponentially stronger than anyone else who's ever existed. Um, he's this super positive kid, even though he's bullied by his own adopted family or extended family. Whatever he does, of course, he finds himself into trouble because of his powers. But whatever he does is positive, right? He's always trying to help save the day, or does, or his friends help him. But yeah, very much the divine child.
So the next one, I think we kind of went around the divine child a little long. So the next one is the high chair tyrant. So the divine child has two shadow forms. He has one that's more active, one that's more passive. The active one of the two is the high chair tyrant that Moore and Gillette dubbed. So just like the divine child, this one here needs attention, but unlike the divine child, he doesn't give anything in return. So he only takes, he only wants, but does not give. You see a lot of entitlement, a lot of arrogance, a lot of narcissism, expects others to solve their problems, can't take criticism, that sort of thing, where it's you have all that energy, but it's not directed properly.
I would say also doesn't respect and appreciate meritocracy, where they're like, no, I should get this, I should be rewarded with this. When it's like, yeah, but there's someone who is more competent who got it. But they and often it's in stories, it's the case for revenge, right?
Like to me, it's just like
Or turning bad.
it sounds like the rich kid, like just the spoiled brat sort of thing, the trust fund baby. That's the archetype that comes to mind for me.
Right. Like, why didn't I get the trophy? Why didn't I win? It's like, well, because you didn't run as fast as the other guy at the track meet. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah. One example that you put in, I never watched the series, but I've seen little clips of this guy, Joffrey, King Joffrey.
Yeah, King Joffrey in Game of Thrones, for sure.
Walk me through him.
I mean, I haven't King Joffrey. Yeah, I haven't. It's been a few years since I watched him in that series, but anybody who's watched Game of Thrones is like, oh yeah, King Joffrey, totally. I think they all agree. The definition of a high chair tyrant. He becomes king very early. He's like, I forget what he's 15 max, something like that, and he's just a horrible, horrible human being who's extremely self-centered. Also sociopathic in the sense that he has no remorse or feeling for causing pain or death or anything like that. Of course, so he's very much like the as far archetype as you can go, like as severe as you can get. But he would be the perfect example, or at least early him would be a very good example of the high chair tyrant. The other one you put down, which I think is a great example too, is Commodus. So Joaquin Phoenix's character in The Gladiator.
Well, exactly. Very entitled, very spoiled, runs from responsibility, only wants, does not give. You can see that there's arrogance. You can see that there's narcissism. That's a case study on this personality type.
Right. And I think he's a great example of not wanting to understand what meritocracy is, right? Because the whole premise of the movie is he's basically committing revenge, I guess, because Maximus was more, I guess, loved or admired by his own father, because Maximus in many ways deserved it. He was the more competent king, right?
And very jealous.
Yes, absolutely.
The next one, so that was the high chair tyrant, is the active shadow form. The passive shadow form would be the weakling prince. So this one here doesn't throw tantrums like the high chair tyrant, doesn't really have the same passion for life either, doesn't have the enthusiasm, no initiative, is very blasé, but that comes from a place of fear usually. So it's the kind of person who wants the accolades, who wants to build, wants to develop, and is either too lazy or too fearful to go out into the world and take the risks and put themselves out there. Often takes the form of the nice guy in adulthood. So like we were saying earlier, you can be an adult but not, still be stuck in a boyhood archetype, and especially a shadow form of the archetypes. This is the nice guy. It's the soy boys of today. They're listless, they're passive. Sure, they might want more in life, but they're not going to go get it. You can walk all over them. There's nothing. There's no spine. There's no substance to them. They're jellyfish.
I'd say it's kind of, we started the premise of this episode saying that, there has been a masculinity crisis and an attack on masculinity and what that means to be a man. I'd say, this is partly the negative archetype, or the negative side of things, that has really permeated in our culture today, whether that's in pop culture or in our actual male population.
Yeah, I think when you neuter men to the point of where we are today, this is what you end up with. You'll either end up with tyrants, but the majority, you'll end up with weakling princes like this. Weakling prince.
And you mentioned nice guy there. There's something, it's Jordan Peterson that said that, and it always resonated with me. He said, someone mentioned nice guy, because it's funny, as guys, we know this is code, but if you ever ask a girl or girls, what they think of this guy, right? So it could be, let's say our girlfriends hang out and they have another friend that's dating nice. A guy. Yeah. And then we go, what do you guys think of him? And then they go, he's nice. And so to me, that
translate the womanese means I have exactly zero sexual interest in this guy.
Yeah, it means he is probably not very good looking, and he's not that positive king archetype that you would like in someone. So they say he's nice. Now, what marked me when Jordan Peterson, it came up in a conversation he was having. He said, "You never want to aspire to be nice. If you want to aspire to be something close, you want to aspire to be kind." And I was like, yes, it sounds like semantics, but it's not.
Yeah, not
Do
even
not
close.
try, don't ever aspire to be nice guys. Aspire to be kind guys.
I would say if you want to be nice, be strong first. And this is another Peterson. Like I forget how he says it. He's far more poetic than I am, but the gist of it is a good man is a strong man who can cause damage but has that under voluntary control. That is nice because you are able to do stuff. You just so choose to use your energy kindly and nicely. That is nice.
Which would be the king archetype, or a
Exactly.
key component of it. Yeah.
You put Ryan Howard from The Office. This is another series
Yes.
that I haven't watched a whole lot. What can you walk me through him too?
Yeah. So sorry, guys. Jason's a little pop culture
Illiterate.
illiterate. The Office is the best sitcom ever. But Ryan Howard, for those who do watch it, I think will agree with me here. He is in many ways the weakling prince. It's funny. I was just watching an episode last night before my wife and I went to bed, and he's like this sleazy guy, right? He tries to one up all the time, but by putting none of the work, just being very sleazy, having no like little to no motivation, or he has these bursts of motivation but never follows through. He's just a big talker, tries to sound cool and hip for whatever's in at the moment by putting down others. But the episode I watched last night, he's always dating Kelly Kapoor, and they're always in, it's a toxic relationship. They're always fighting. He's always trying to find ways to like cheat on her or like leave her because he knows he can always run back to her. He'll like ask her for money and then dump her, like a whole bunch of stuff. And at one point, Michael, the manager, is, I forget what he's doing, but he's like, he doesn't give a shit. He's just living. Oh, it's because he found out that he's having an affair with a woman who's married. So he just found out he's the mistress, right? And so he's like living the high life. He thinks he's cool, and everybody's telling him like, this is wrong. Stop doing it. He's like, I don't care. I do what I want. So Ryan's like, oh, I like that energy. So he goes to Erin, who's the cute receptionist, and he's like, he's like, I like you. I think you're attractive, and I'd like to have sex with you, or something like that. And she's like, what does Kelly think? And he's like, you read my mind. like basically he's thinking he can get a threesome out of it. And the second she like asks him another question that clearly shows that she's not interested, and like, what the hell are you doing? She's like, are you joking? That's what it is. She goes, are you joking? He's like, yup. And then he goes away and goes straight back to Kelly. And I was like, yep, there's a perfect example.
Yeah, and it's, man, I feel like every young man has been there where you're just like, you kind of have an idea of what masculinity and how like go get what you want, go put a dent in the universe works, but you really don't get it yet. I feel like this is one of these where you're fearful, you kind of know what you have to do, but you have no idea how to do it. So you'll try something, it's going to blow up in your face, you're going to recoil, and then you're just going to go run back to mom, sort of thing. Yeah. I feel like we've all been there in one form or another.
Oh yeah, there's definitely bits of that, especially growing up. A few other examples we have here is Longshanks' son. Jason and I, one of our favorite movies, Braveheart. So Longshanks' son is the weakling son of the king, right? And that's really how he's stereotyped in the movie. Can't make the right decisions. When he tries to please his father, he just disappoints him. Also, there's a level of him that is benevolent, that is not nearly as mean or sadistic as his father, but then he lets down his father, so he tries to be sadistic and make those harsh decisions. So he's a good example of the weakling prince, literally.
And also hides his true intentions, which is part of the weakling prince. And true motives. Because in the movie, he's gay. He doesn't let it out.
Right.
So like he's ashamed or afraid of his full identity, right? His fullness.
Right. And just doesn't have that evil charisma that his father has as well to rule with an iron fist. And the other one we put is Steve Carell in 40-Year-Old Virgin, which I think is at least he dabbles in it. He's not necessarily the weakling prince in the sense that he's not a negative character, right? He's a pretty like benevolent cat, but he is such a weakling. He's so introverted, so scared of anything, showing any enthusiasm or initiative outside of his very small bubble, that it makes him absolutely a weakling prince.
Yeah, he's very passive. All right,
Yeah.
let's move on to the king.
The full out archetype.
So this is the king in his fullness. This is the most complex of all the four. And the reason we started here is that it's the kind of easiest to visualize, but also kind of gives you a good overall picture of the pillars of the traits of a mature man, according to this, which, I kind of like. I find it makes sense. Um, so the king is the summation of the other three, as well as has his own stuff. So he has the strength and the discipline of the warrior. He has the hunger for knowledge and is a perpetual student and a teacher, like the magician. He builds good relationships, not just with the opposite sex, but with wherever he goes, and is kind and considerate, just like the lover. But on top of that, he is empathetic, he is structured, and he is just. So he's benevolent. So he is the king in his fullness. So the way we divvied this up is there's all these different traits and aspects to his persona. And, we'll go through them fairly quickly, but if there's something we want to talk about, Will, feel free, add what you want. So the first thing about the king is that he's centered. It can be socially, like you think of Louis XIV, or I think it's XIV, like in the Palais de
L'Enfant Soleil.
Yes,
L'Enfant Soleil. Yeah.
His chambers was right in the center of Versailles, physically in the center. Think about it like from a just floor plan.
No narcissism there.
No narcissism, but like he was the geographic center of the palace, which, okay, cool.
In the blueprint, yeah.
But he's centered within himself. Like, he doesn't let his emotions override him. He is able to take a step back, see things for how they are, and that's the basis for all his decision making. He doesn't let himself be pulled in one direction or another, and if he feels himself being tugged at, he'll remove himself, come back, recenter, and then reapproach the situation with a fresher, more even-keeled view. He's present to the moment, which is part of being centered. It's understanding what is happening and why it's happening. I can tell you, man, the days that, like, I'm in management, right? So I have a staff of 130. The days that I feel that I'm on and doing well is days that I feel like I'm embodying this principle. It's days where I can approach any one of the other managers, any one of my staff. I'll understand the interaction for what it is. I'm not held back by emotion, not held back by tiredness, not held back by overwork. And I'm able to take good decisions for the person in front of me, for myself, for the department, for the hospital. I'm able to see what's really going on. And whenever you're embodying that, even if you have to discipline someone, it'll be done in a way that's positive.
It's funny how there's just days like that, eh?
Oh, I love those days.
You have a day that you're just like, why am I more social, talkative? Everything seems to be going well. Whatever I say, it resonates with everybody. And then other days you're like, yeah, I don't feel that way today.
I don't know about you, but for me, if I'm not rested, that's the first thing to go. I need to get adequate sleep. If I don't have it, I will not be able to do this in its fullness. Other than that, like proper diet, proper exercise, all the building blocks of your body and your mind contribute to the aspect of being centered. And for me, I know it's sleep. If the sleep isn't there, I won't be able to do this as well as I could.
Another one for me is procrastination. So if it can start nagging at me if I know there are things I should have already done or should be doing. So sometimes it's just like, okay, screw it. Like, I got to get up and do this one thing. So it's off my list. And then my mind will be freer to, again, be stronger at the social game today or the, whatever else it may be. But at least I can, remove the fact that I really should have already mowed my lawn and edited this podcast, things like that.
Yeah. Next one is he's decisive. Obviously, he's the king. He's not wishy-washy. Now, this is not, just deciding willy-nilly, but when he makes a decision, it is grounded, it is final, it is the decision. He's in charge, and his decisions are always rooted in his values and his experience. It's not playing favorites. It's not, well, this time, maybe not that time. It's he understands the principles, he understands his values, and he understands the consequences of the decision that he's making. A king is integral. He lives life with integrity, mends relationship, keeps his word, takes responsibility, and this really integrates all the other archetypes, right? He's built upon all his experience and his knowledge, and lives within his values and his integrity. Any examples coming to mind for you for stuff like that? Just so we don't read off like a list of values and stuff.
So yeah, let's actually, while you were just listing the last the last characteristics there, I was thinking Jocko Willing, because you had mentioned him below here in the list. Very good example. He's a real life example for those who don't know him. He used to be a SEAL or commander, I think, for the Navy SEALs eventually. Retired SEAL now, but a motivational speaker. He's in the leadership business. He's in a bunch of businesses now. Has written books, children's literature. He's also, I think, in the boot garment business, a whole bunch of things. Coffee now. But the big thing I see with him is that he's firm, he's disciplined, and at the end of the day, he has integrity. And he is decisive, right? He's always like, he's always trolling people like at 4 a.m. on Instagram and stuff. And he's just like, what's your excuse? And it's him like already sweating, doing his workout with his deadlifts at 4 a.m. Because he's like, no, I find time. I wake up and I do it. So you didn't have time today? It's because you didn't wake up at 4 a.m.
I think today, like one of the best examples of a positive masculine archetype, especially the king, is Jocko. And if you do nothing else other than, Google who is Jocko Willing today, or find his podcast, completely worth it.
Yeah.
He protects.
Go ahead.
The king protects his realm. It's the classic function of the king. Now, this is, the thing, every man's house is his kingdom sort of thing. You protect your family, you protect your home. That's part of being the mature man and being the king.
He's a patriarch.
He's a patriarch in the purest sense of the word.
Yep.
He provides order. So we often say, or it's often said, that the masculine energy is the order, the feminine energy is the chaos. Not to say that women are chaotic and men are orderly, but to say that it's that discipline, it's that understanding, it's that centeredness that brings his ability to provide order. The same, it ties into his decision making. It ties into his understanding of his surroundings. He provides rules so that others can flourish and not be controlled by them. And that's. I also think you can tie it in consistency and reliability. I think when designing a really good villain or a really scary character, you'll design it so that you don't know what their decision will be or how they react to the situation that's unfolded, right? You see this all the time with henchmen who will go back to the boss and say, we didn't get him, boss, or this happened, he kicked our ass. Yeah, and then he's like, oh, that's cool. Boom, pops him in the head, or, gets his other men to go out and cut him up or whatever it may be. So that's something that's, it's the opposite on the king is, what you're going to get when you go and tell him, the information, or he has to make a hard decision. You can predict to a certain extent because he's got those consistent values. So he's not just going to turn around and punch you in the face because he's emotionally upset at what you said. Yeah, there's no favoritism. The rules are the rules for everyone, including himself.
And a good example here is, I forget the exact situation, but I remember Eddard Stark in Game of Thrones. He's the patriarch and the king for the Stark family. So the up north in Game of Thrones. And Winterfell, that's the name of the castle, Winterfell. And the very first episode, I believe, and I forget why, but they break the rules. I don't know if they defect or something. He executes, I think he even does it himself. He beheads someone because that's the rules. And yes, it's a harsh show. You kind of just have to get into it. There's a lot of beheading, murder, rape, all of it. It's just a very brutal show all around. But even from the first episode, you understand that he's a very kind of noble king who has these rules that he follows, and they're fair for everybody. So even people getting executed are not surprised. It's kind of like, yep, I broke the rules. This is what happens.
Yeah. Also a show I've never watched.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I guess we did talk about Game of Thrones earlier with Joffrey.
Yeah.
Uh,
Joffrey.
so this is kind of the extension of the boy, the divine child. He blesses the lives of others. He recognizes their achievements. He's not bitter about other people's success. He wants to promote their success and see them flourish. He encourages others. He's a mentor. He sees it as a responsibility to develop other kings. So I think
Right.
that's beautiful, and that's one of the things that society has forgotten about men today. They were treated as if we're egotistical and it's all for us and that. But sure, we want to build ourselves up, but it's lonely at the top. You want to see other people's success, and their success is your success, and it's your community's success. If your neighbor's doing well, your neighborhood is better, and if your neighbor's doing well, now there's just there's more for everyone.
Yeah.
He doesn't see it as a zero sum game. He sees it as an upward spiral.
Right.
And lastly, but not least, he leaves a legacy. He's the kind of man who wants to see his actions be lasting. I remember yesterday we were chatting with my friend Ricky, who's building a plumbing company, and he was kind of talking about, he said, well, I want to build something that lasts. I want to build. I don't just want to be an employee. I want to build something, whatever that something is. And that is very much an embodiment of the king right there. You don't necessarily know why you're doing it, but you just know you want to leave something for someone else.
Absolutely. It's a very noble cause. I think it's a Jewish edict. It's an ancient Jewish edict, I believe. And it says, it's three things. It says, before you die, make sure you write a book, plant a tree, and have a son. I think that's how it goes. Because those three things will all outlast you. They will outlive you. So again, very, very key characteristic to the king there.
A couple other examples that we have. Jocko for sure. Eddard, I'll take your word on that one. Marcus Aurelius,
Yes.
the last great the last great emperor of Rome. He embodied this to a T. He re-listen to it. That was essentially Marcus Aurelius. Very benevolent.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, exactly. I guess he'd be a good definition of, or as close as you can come to a benevolent dictator to an extent.
Yeah, exactly.
A benevolent ruler. Yeah. There's Teddy Roosevelt you added, which I think is great because he's not that I'm an expert in Theodore Roosevelt history, but insanely interesting life that guy had. Not only was 2-term president at the turn of the 20th century, he was also I was refreshing myself a little bit on Teddy Roosevelt the other day, and it's crazy. The amount of things he did. He's a historian. He became very quickly a naturalist and kind of, I guess you would call it, environmentalist to an extent today.
Yeah, he created the first national parks, I think, in the U.S.
Yeah, he created the national parks in the U.S. Yeah, so Parks Canada here, kind of thing. And he also lived some hardships. He had a wife. I think he was like 25. She was about 22. And she gave birth to their first daughter. And 2 days later, she died because she had kidney failure. It's this weird thing. It just happened all of a sudden. It was masked by the pregnancy, apparently. And within 11 hours, I think right before that in the same house, his mom died. So yeah, within 12 hours in the same house, both of the women in his life died. He super sad. He went off to Dakota and fell in love with ranching. So I think he bought a cattle ranch, eventually became more of a cowboy, came back because he had left his newborn daughter with his sister, I believe, who raised her for a couple of years. Eventually becomes president, fights in the Spanish-American War, becomes a war hero, super respected in that context. And then I think after his presidency, he goes to the Amazon for like a 2-year exploration journey, almost dies of illnesses, like the ultimate kind of adventure, warrior, king, all of them. Yeah. So fascinating guy.
Very inspirational. So you hear all that, you think, okay, that's nice. That's not me. Where do you start? How can you develop the king within yourself? Again, I'm going to put my Jordan Peterson hat on here real quick. Find the heaviest thing you can lift and do so. Not necessarily an object, but the heaviest responsibility. No, and again, whether it's start by cleaning your room before cleaning up the world, whether it's take on more responsibility at work, whether it's try to fix something on your car, whatever. Find something hard to do you don't really know how to do. Do it.
Totally.
Learn from your mistakes. I mean, we all make them. That's something. There's no way around it. Use them. They're going to happen anyways. Use them for something positive. Learn from your mistakes, from your fuck ups. You talk to the girl, you got rejected. Okay, cool. That's nice. What'd you do wrong? Don't do it next time. You didn't get that job. Okay, cool, good. Just take a line from Jocko this time. Good. You didn't get the job. More of an opportunity to get better. Know your values. Extreme ownership. Know your values. Know what you stand. Be disciplined. Find a mentor. Be a mentor. Have a plan. Be empathetic. Listen to others. All these things are all things that the king will do daily.
So we'll finish off with the shadow forms of the king. So we have the tyrant to start off.
So the tyrant, that to me, that's like the easiest villain to write.
Yeah,
it's the stereotypical villain. He has all the.
It's the opposite of the king.
Well, he has all the strength of the king, but none of the benevolence of the king.
Right.
And
the dark side of the king.
Yeah, exactly. He's the King Longshanks from Braveheart. He's Palpatine. Now, Palpatine is the ultimate tyrant, all powerful, all knowing, all seeing. Is the finality of the law. But it's all about him. Everything that he's created is only to ascend himself into power and to godhood.
Right.
So
yeah, I put a few other examples too. Hades, Jafar from Aladdin. Still, I think he's a sultan, like still very much kingly, but all the negative traits.
And this is often how strong men are portrayed. They're often portrayed as tyrants, even though, sure, are there some? Yes, of course. It's not an archetype for no reason, but it's not what you're striving to become.
Yeah, what I also find deceiving in that is there will always be tyrants or tyrant archetypes. And so what fights or solves that is someone like a king, right? But we're trying to eliminate all of those and trying to hide the fact that no matter what, there will be tyrants. There are bad people out there. And yes, a lot more men are aggressive at the far end of the scale. So there will be bad men who do bad and violent things. And who stops those people? Other men, benevolent men, noble men. And it's something we've completely not only forgotten, but just like brainwashed to ignore. Anyways, it's odd.
Yeah, see you in the neo-feudal society when we're all living in mega cities and all getting UBI. But anyways, that's a discussion for another day. Yeah. So some aspects of the tyrant seeks to tear down others, complete opposite of the king who seeks to build up, a complete narcissist. To me, that's Palpatine. Like that, but he's the best one here. Believes that power is finite, so that if someone else acquires power, that's taking away from his. Completely insecure about losing his power. Sees people as threats or objects. Everyone is something either to be torn down or used, and he'll discard whatever or whoever after they serve their purpose. I mean, again, Palpatine. He had Darth Maul. Darth Maul was basically his weapon. Got killed by Obi-Wan, got sliced in half, and then by the power of the fandom came back in Clone Wars. What did Palpatine do? He choked the shit out of him and then put him in prison. He had served his function. He had Dooku after Maul, and Dooku was all about the politics, skilled duelist, a former Jedi, learning the dark side, very, very strong Force user, was a great master manipulator. What did he do? He got Anakin to kill him because he wanted the younger, stronger apprentice. He gets Anakin now, Darth Vader, who gets completely fucked up by Obi-Wan on Mustafar. Now he has the suit and sounds like James Earl Jones. Okay, so what does he do? He never teaches him how to be a Sith. He calls him a Sith, but he never actually teaches him the proper fundaments of the Sith. He just uses them as a weapon, kind of like what he did with Darth Maul. And now he's sitting on top of the Empire, and there's no one in sight. And the only person who should replace him in the rule of two is completely his lapdog.
Right.
I like Star Wars.
Good Star Wars analysis there, Jason. Very astute.
And okay, so yeah, anything you want to add to that one?
No, I think we're good. Let's finish it up here with the weakling shadow form. So I would say this is essentially the more of the sneaky / coward side of the tyrant king.
General Grievous. There you go. I'm going to stay on the Star Wars references. He's the Grievous.
That's the
like
forearm guy.
Forearm cyborg there that Obi-Wan
yeah.
shoots. So uncivilized.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what the weakling does is that he abdicates responsibility. He might want it, he might kind of have it, but he hides from it. He runs from responsibility. He's scared of it. That's the grown man who still calls mom to should I go to the doctor? I'm going to call mom. I don't know. Can be bullied. And he's a child who attains power, but it still has that reticence, still feels like that bullied child on the inside. His insecurities get the best of him, and often the weakling will become the tyrant. The weakling when he lashes out like the tyrant. So he's scared, scared, and then when he bursts out, it's never in a positive way. It's always a negative burst.
I would say that's a very common origin story for a lot of pop culture villains, right? Where they're like the bullied child or the misunderstood child or the weird child, whatever. They're ostracized, and then they turn into the tyrant, but still have very much the weakling form behind them, because they're almost more of a trickster or they're still very much a coward. They don't take responsibility for their actions, but they want all the control secretly at this point.
Yeah, it's the bullied kid who got power and now doesn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
I'll give you a real life example of this one here. Karl Marx. 100% Karl Marx was by all measures a loser, refused to work. He was married, got his wife to go to her parents, to their friends, to ask for money because he refused to work. All he did was sit and write and bitch about everyone else except himself.
Died. And in fact, predict a violent revolution from the workers to the owners, which never happened. So he tried to force it through his literature and his politics. Yeah,
hated order. The whole idea of the Communist Manifesto is that if it exists, it needs to be torn down and replaced with something that's not that. Whatever that may be, it doesn't matter. Just if it's a thing now, let it not be a thing, which is the fundament of communism, essentially. And all in all, a true weakling. Someone who aspired to power, but would not understand it, would not know it, and would not achieve it honestly. Was expecting to have it foisted upon him just because of who he was.
Right. I wrote a few pop culture examples here. First is Scar. So again, I find the weakling shadow form is very much can mold or fuse very well with the tyrant or other bad archetypes. But there's a part of Scar that is definitely the weakling, right? He's Mufasa's brother. Mufasa was always the better looking, stronger, better lion, therefore the king. And Scar, when gets the opportunity, because he's much weaker, he and his brother's in a very vulnerable moment, he decides to kill his brother, right? Only when he has the chance, right? It's kind of like the bad guys who want to have a fight. It's like a final fight with the hero of the movie, and then he's like, no guns. And so the hero's like, okay, I'm noble. Let's do this hand-to-hand stuff. And then he grabs a gun.
Yeah, it's exactly that.
So that kind of thing. So Scar has definitely a lot of elements of the weakling. And then another one we put here is the Joker from The Dark Knight. He definitely has a very strong tyrant complex as well. But the Joker is absolutely weaker than Batman. He plays God, but from a very backseat position where he sets people up in these huge dilemmas that'll result in hundreds or thousands of casualties. When he drops Rachel, that's a very weakling move, right? It's kind of like, okay, wrong choice of words, and he drops Rachel down the building. So then Batman has to go and save her, and again, it's a lot easier to drop an innocent woman down a skyscraper than actually diving after her and saving her life.
Or fighting
which
Batman.
is what the king or the warrior would do. Or fighting Batman, which is the other option. So Joker in a lot of aspects has the weakling backing him up.
Yeah, so I think that that goes around the childhood and the fullness archetypes of the king. And next time around, let's do the magician.
Sounds good. We had more to say than I thought. We actually ran long enough. So we'll leave you guys there, and hope you guys enjoyed. That was another episode of the Independent Mindset. Like Jason said, next one we'll cover is the magician, what that means, and all of its examples in pop culture and literature.
Yeah, and give us a comment. What do you think? Does this make sense? Do you see this in yourself? Have you had moments? Is it something that you're striving to be? What are your failures? Because you can easily, hit the king and then come back down to the tyrant, catch yourself, be like, nope, this is wrong, and then going back up to the king. Tell us some stories. Have you ever seen yourself in any of these? I know I have.
And I would say the best characters out there, the characters I relate most to and that I admire the most in literature, pop culture, are characters that are not perfectly one archetype. They are a nice mixture of archetypes, and they're flawed, but they understand that they're flawed, and at the end of the day, come out, more positive than negative, having done a net benefit to society as opposed to a net negative, which is what we all should strive to do.
Right on. So let's leave it there, and we'll talk next week.
All right. Cheers.